Hello everyone, this is Keith Jackson and welcome to Jack's Math Notebook. In this video, we are going to factor quadratics by grouping, and if you remember, the quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c, and we have three big examples to show you how to factor these quadratic equations through grouping. And so let's take a look at our first big example in which we have 3x squared plus 13x plus 10. All right, looks a little bit difficult, but we're going to show you an easy way to kind of find out how to factor this particular quadratic equation. And what we're going to do, we're just going to multiply a times c. And when we do that, we're going to multiply 3 times 10. And what that's going to happen, we're going to get 30 right here. So I'm just going to put the 30 on top, and we're going to see which two numbers that multiply to 30, but also add to 13, which is right here. And those two numbers again are 3 plus 10, because 3 plus 10 gives me 13, and 3 times 10 will give me 30. And so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use that 3 and that 10. I'm just going to put it right here, put that 3 here and that 10 right there. And then I'm going to treat this as a 3x, and I'm going to treat this as a 10x, because 3x plus 10x will give me 13x. And I'm just going to write it out down here. I'm going to keep this 3x squared. I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to use this 3, put it as 3x right here. And I'm going to use this 10 and put it as 10x here, because they're going to combine to make that b right there. And then I'm just going to drop down the 10. And so now we have 3x squared plus 3x plus 10x plus 10. And what we're going to do is just going to group them separately using the plus sign as like a dividing point, right? To like for grouping purposes, as you see right here. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put 3x squared plus 3x into its own group right here. And I'm going to put 10x plus 10 in its separate group right here. And then I'm going to factor out a good number. So in this case, you know what? I can factor out a 3x. And so if I factor out a 3x, I will have this right here. I will have the 3x on the outside, and then the rest of this will become x plus 1. Okay, now how can that be, right? You're probably saying, okay, how did you turn this into that? All right, you just simply divide by 3x. So if you divide everything in here by 3x, what you're going to get, you're going to turn this into a 1, and you're going to turn this into an x. And here's what's going to happen if we distribute that 3x inside these parentheses. I'll still get 3x times x, which would give me 3x squared. And I got 3x times 1, and that would give me 3x. And so we got that 3x factored out right here. And we can do the same thing by factoring out a 10. Just factor out that 10 by dividing everything right here by 10, factor that 10 out, and now we have 10 times the quantity of x plus 1. So here we got 3x times the quantity of x plus 1 plus 10 times the quantity of x plus 1. And you can see what's happening. We have a common factor right here. And so we're going to use that factor. We're going to put it on the outside as x plus 1, because it is a common factor that we see among these two groups. And then what we're going to do, we're going to take this 3x and we're going to add that to 10. That would be our second group right here. And so in its factored form, 3x squared plus 13x plus 10 is the same thing right here. And how do we know? We're going to use box method to prove that this factored form of this quadratic equation is correct by putting 3x plus 10 on top, while putting x plus 1 on the bottom. And as you can see, x times 3x will give me 3x squared, while x times 10 will give me 10x, and 1 times 3x will give me 3x, and 1 times 10 will give me 10, knowing that 3x plus 10x will give me that 13x you see up here. You see this 3x squared, it's right there. And this number 10 is right over here, so we know that that is correct. All right, and so it does form 3x squared plus 13x plus 10, as you see. And let's move on to the second big example, in which we have 6n squared minus 7n minus 24. Again, we're going to multiply a times c in order to fully factor this particular equation out. When we do that, 6 times a negative 24 would give me a negative 144, and we're going to find out two numbers, okay, that multiply. We already found out that they multiply to 144 a times c, and those same numbers are going to have to give me a negative 7, okay? So it may be a little bit difficult. You may have to run through a few numbers, but you're going to run across, let's say, a 9 times a negative 16. A 9 times a negative 16 will give me that negative 144, while a 9 minus 16 will give me that negative 7 right here. Okay. All right. And so we're going to use that 9 and that 16 right here. We're going to put them into the n values, right? And so we're just going to take that 9 and we're going to make it 9n, and we're going to take that 16 and we're going to make it 16n. And we're just going to plug it right here, just like you see here. So we're going to put that 6n squared right here, this plus 9n squared, and then minus 16n, and then put the negative 24 right here. And then we're going to establish our groupings right here using the plus sign as kind of a way to, let's say, more determine our groupings here. And so in this case right here, we can factor out a 3. When we factor out a 3n, rather, we can factor out 3n, then we'll get 2n plus 3 inside here. Okay, how do you know that? Because when you distribute this 3n, you're going to get this back right here, and I'll show you. So we have 3n times 2n, that will give us 6n squared, while 3n times 3 will give me a 9n. And we could do the same thing over here by factoring out an 8 within this group. And if we do that, we'll get a negative 8 times the quantity of 2n plus 3 here. And we know that when we distribute this negative 8 inside these parentheses, it will give us this, because a negative 8 times 2n will give us a negative 16n, while a negative 8 times a positive 3 will give us a negative 24. All right, so we have our factored form, and guess what? We have our common factor of 2n plus 3, in which we're going to put over here. And then we're going to use this 3n and this minus 8. We're going to make it another factor right here, just like you see that right here. So 3n minus 8 will go here, while this 2n plus 3 will go here. And let us use the box method to make sure that everything works out just fine. And so we're going to put 2n plus 3 on top, while we're going to put 3n minus 8 on the bottom. And when we do that, we have 3n times 2n, which will give us 6n squared, while 3n plus, or I should say 3n times 3 will give us 9n, and a negative 8 times 2n will give us a negative 16n, and negative 8 times 3 will give us a negative 24, and it all works out right here. Okay, so let's move on to our third big example, in which we have 2y squared plus 7y plus 3. Of course, we're going to multiply a times c, which will give us 6. And we're going to figure out, well, what are those two numbers that will that multiply to 6, but give us 7 when we add them together? And those two numbers, of course, are 1 and 6, because 1 times 6 will give us 6, and 1 plus 6 will give us 7. And so we're going to use that 1 and put it here. We're going to use that 6 and we're going to put it here. And they're going to serve as our factors right here, as you see when we plug it right back in. And so we have our 2y squared right here. And we're going to call this one our 1y, or just our y. And then we're going to call this 6 our 6y. We're just going to add those two together, because 1y plus 6y will give us a 7y up here. And then we're just going to bring down this 3. And we're going to form our groupings right here, as you see right here. And so in this case, we can factor out a y. Okay, so when we factor out a y, we get y times the quantity of 2y plus 1. And how do we know? Because if we go y times 2y, we will get 2y squared. And if we go y times 1, we will get our y. So this grouping does work. We're going to do the same thing with this grouping, in which we're going to factor out a 3. And when we do that, we will have 3 times the quantity of 2y plus 1. And how do we know? Because if we go 3 times 2y, we will get 6y. And 3 times 1 will give us 3, that you see right here. So this is a workable grouping right here. And guess what? We see 2y plus 1 here and 2y plus 1 here. So that is our factor that we're going to put right here. And then all we're going to do is just make another group in which we're going to add y to 3 right here, y plus 3. And when we put this into our box method, we will find that 2y plus 1 times y plus 3 will give us this right here. And so I'll go over it with you. Y times 2y will give us 2y squared, while y times 1 will just give us 1y, or y. 3 times 2y will give us 6y, while 3 times 1 will give us 3. And as you can see right here, 6y plus y will give us our 7y. We have our 2y squared right here. And of course, we have our 3. And you have been given a lot of information. And I wouldn't blame you if you need to pause the video to take a look at these 3 big examples, or replay this video as many times you need to gain a deeper understanding of how to factor quadratic equations by grouping. But in the meantime, please comment, share, like, and subscribe to Jack's Math Notebook for more content. Thank you, and goodbye.